hear on our last episode that my voice wasn't coming through.
My bad.
That was planned by Cody.
It was not planned. I did set up the equipment though, so sorry. If you want to hear if you're like really dying to hear what all Sam had to say, just email me and I'll send you the MP3 and you can listen to it. I guess I could republish it, but I really don't want to do that either.
Yeah, that's fine. In other news, we had some other guests planned for today, but they had to reschedule. If you didn't listen to the last episode because you couldn't hear me, we were excited about a couple guests coming on. Former President of the United States, Barack Obama, and his good buddy, former President of the United States, Donald Trump.
B&T, as we've come to call.
We're coming on together to talk hunting stories, actually. But they emailed us and said we haven't gotten any godbush yet. They said we tried, we're on some birds, but until then, we're going to have to postpone. So
we're still waiting.
So just, be on the lookout for that episode coming soon. But fortunately, we've got a couple of other guests that we're equally as excited to have on. Pete and Shane. Let's do a quick introduction. Shane, you've been on before, so you'll go second. But Pete, go ahead.
First of all, I want to address I was not told I was the second choice of guest. I mean, I should take top billing of those.
Isn't it shocking that since Donald Trump is no longer president, that he's become such good friends with Barack Obama and that they're hunting together?
I was unaware of that. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the value of the podcast.
Yeah. You learn things like that.
That's what's great about this podcast in America.
Yeah.
It's just, we're all friends.
Yeah.
And you can learn everything you know right here.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Right here.
Really something. Really something.
No, we're super stoked to have you guys here. And you weren't second choice by any means.
Yeah.
Top tier guests, as always, Shane. Top tier guest for a second time around.
But Pete, tell us a little bit about you, about River Kings, and why you're here today.
Okay, so the long and short of it is I was always as a kid into canoes and canoe trips with a group called Royal Rangers, which is like a church-based Boy Scouts. And but then later in life, I got into a kayak for the first time, and that just took off. And within a year and a half, I was doing the 40-foot waterfalls and all that. Kind of got out of it when my son was born because it was time to be a father and not chase rain in the mountains all weekend, every weekend. But I ended up doing some source to sea trips. I got a bunch of my friends interested. They came along with me. I was trying to burn them a DVD of some footage from the trip so they could have the memory, but my computer was so old it wouldn't do it. So I just uploaded it to YouTube, and they had made up the name River Kings, which is another fun story. I just put it up there as River Kings so they could watch it anytime they wanted. That's kind of how the channel started, and we've just gone from there. It's been a lot of fun. So
Shane.
I am Shane. My channel is called Monkeying Around, and I kind of do the same thing, kayaking, camping. I paddled for a long time, but I started actually camping out of it 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm not near the Pete's a whole lot bigger than I am. Mm-hmm. But so I guess I'm saying
you're big to us.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
Is that $5?
Yeah, sorry, that was we'll pay it.
We'll settle it.
I saw him slip you a Reese cup earlier. So before we get too deep into it, we do need to recognize a few of our premier sponsors who, if you're interested in this episode, you're going to be interested in going to check them out anyways. So you need to check out Backcountry Beyond. Mm-hmm. They're going to carry a lot of the gear that you may hear about on this trip. See, I'm already thinking trip. Mm-hmm. On this podcast. Mm-hmm. If you want to put your dog in a kayak, you might need to check out Grayson Guy at Lost Highway Gun Dog Kennels. Mm-hmm. He can train your dog on how to do it right. Mm-hmm. Or train you on how to do it right and do it safe.
I'm getting a dog.
Are you planning on putting your dog in?
100%.
My dog's got me.
It's going to be a river rat. Speaking of Backcountry and Beyond, we're drinking Black Rifle right now. By the way, just a shout out. That's where you can get that product. Who else you want to talk about?
Rock Outdoors. So
Shane,
his other, I guess the other half of your life there, Rock Outdoors, which I'm sure we'll get more mentions in. But Shane, if you go to Rock Outdoors, you're probably gonna see Shane.
I'll be there.
So listen to this and hear the expertise, then go shop with him. Mm-hmm. And also, Traveler Trading Co. check those
Home
guys
of,
out.
home of the Big Iron Belt.
Home of the Big Iron Belt.
We got to name that belt.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
I think, well, I don't know if we got to, we just did. And then, then he decided it was a good enough name for him. So,
What's the name?
it's, so this belt, it's, so it looks like leather, but it's not. It's synthetic material that doesn't, like when you wear a leather belt, after a while it kind of molds to your waist and then the holes start wearing out after a while. This one doesn't do anything. It doesn't stretch, doesn't sweat. It's pretty cool. And we named it the Big Iron Belt because I was wearing my pistol on it all the time. Carry my big iron on there and it never sagged my pants.
So there's that Marty Robbins song that was just redone by Culture Wall that we've been listening to a lot, Big Iron. And we've just been listening to it. So we're like, you know what this belt's good for? Carrying your big iron. Yep. And then name it right there.
That's a pretty good name. I guess.
Yeah, it is a great, yeah. Probably the best thing we ever did on this
If
podcast.
he's not selling belts worldwide, I don't understand what would at this point. And then also Wolf and Iron, we check those guys out for all of your manscaping beard products.
Mhm.
So now that's out of the way.
Yeah.
Let's get into the show. Most people probably fast forward.
Maybe not. I mean, they might have missed.
You know,
some
we
information.
see, I think they screw up. They do because we start mixing it up with
Mhm.
how long that stuff takes. So you never know what you're gonna miss.
Mhm.
But anyway, so let's get right into it. You heard about the background and you heard mention of the name River Kings. If you frequent YouTube and you frequent it for action, adventure, or how-to paddling videos, there is a darn fine chance you come across River Kings. I can't imagine, or monkeying around for that matter. Can't imagine you looking that up and it not being in the top, 5 things that pop up, 5 or 6 videos there.
Sometimes we get lucky there, yeah.
Yeah. So River Kings, you've seen this guy. And so you may not be able to see him. We're filming today, actually filming the podcast. So we're actually sitting here living. We're sitting over the phone. We're in person.
Mhm. It's nice. It's nice to be in person. Since we're talking about YouTube, one thing I've noticed, I was going through and watching all your videos, and you've got videos from all across the country. You've got some that are just, your reach is incredible. I mean, you've got some videos where you're talking about hammock camping and your rain fly for your hammock camping setup that has like 500,000 views or something like that.
Yes, it's gone crazy.
And then you've got one that's a dude caught in an eddy.
And we were watching that one.
It's like a minute-long video that's got like 350,000 views. And it's just a dude per minute caught in the whirlpool.
Yeah, I think the one that made that video nice was that guy was so good looking.
Was that you?
Oh, well, yes. That's That was from the early days of the Whitewater Park, and they call that eddy the tourist trap, because when you get in there, you just kind of, sometimes it takes a minute to get out. So
There's something that I've noticed with like social media and YouTube and stuff, where you hit these viral sayings or whatever that seems to just draw in, like, dude caught in a whirlpool.
yes,
It's just something that, like, oh, I want to see this dude get sucked down into a whirlpool.
Yes.
Like our biggest social media.
Potential for danger and bodily harm.
yeah, there's a couple of sure winners to get millions of views, and something that's going to result in extreme bodily injury is usually going to be one of them.
And you never really know what it's going to be until it just happens. Like our biggest social media post for the Land Trust was an April Fool's post about us finding like a humanoid ape on one of our properties, like a Sasquatch. Yeah, but we made it kind of sound like a little bit scientific, and it just got thousands and thousands of views. And we need to do a little brainstorm at some point, maybe after, about like what our next viral thing.
They call that clickbait.
Yeah,
There's a term for it.
Yeah.
Now, to my defense, that was when I was just uploading raw video
Yeah.
from a little handheld camera that my friend took of me, and so we put it up there to watch each other later. This was years and years before I ever tried to do River Kings, and to name it something so he could find it.
Yeah,
just put caught in the whirlpool or something. And I put it up there and walked away, and like 8 years later, I came back and it was like 230,000 views, and all this hate in the comments. This is not even a whirlpool, you know. They came to watch me die, you know.
Yeah.
You never met.
Die in the end.
Yeah.
I got Jim.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. I was like, so I disabled comments for a while because I was like, oh, what's that? It's like, look at the views. Everyone came to see
This is a perfect time to talk about how much people are just trolls
Oh, they are.
They're
Yeah.
just trolls. We get it too. I mean, we get it on every level, just like anybody that's in social media gets it.
Yeah.
It's not talked about very much, but people are just awful.
Oh, yeah, they are. In fact, we joke about on the channel, I have, and hopefully you do too, because it's the market success. You got to have a thumbs down guy. So if I post the thumbnail for a video that's going to premiere on Sunday and I post on Friday, there'll be a thumbs down on that thing. But at least I know he's there and he's still checking in. So, but they'll troll everything, anything you do. And when you're starting out,
paddling it right. This
Yeah.
guy's not.
And another thing we've noticed when I was starting out, I got a lot more trolling. When you cross a certain threshold, they start leaving you alone, but they still pick on, like, they want that kind of smaller channel, smaller. They feel like they got, but when the person gets big, I think maybe they're afraid of it a little, but you can never get rid of all of them. They just get more dedicated.
I was going to ask you about that later, but I'm going to just go ahead and knock that out right out of the gate, because like, it's still like, you read the comments because it's your video. Just like we read when you make a thing on this podcast, we look at that. We see it. I mean, we might not see it that day, but in a month or two, we're like, oh, let's see if anybody said anything new. Somebody's like, oh, those guys suck.
Yeah.
Like, I read that, like, man, that kind of hurts my feelings a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, just, you got to have a thumbs down.
Yeah. So I respond to every single comment.
See, that's unbelievable.
And it takes a while. And last year in the analytics, they showed me the how many comments I responded to and all that. There were 45,000 comments I responded to last year.
Oh my
So
God, that's a full-time job.
it is. It's crazy. And so I'm a trophy husband, if you didn't know that.
I've gathered from the intel we're talking here.
So one thing it's allowed me to do, you got to learn early on, number one, you don't have to respond to the troll because they're there. And it's just
They want you to respond.
They want you. They feed off of it. And you cannot win because they don't care. It's not a rational discussion. It's they want to troll you. And so I'll learn real quick, just cut that out. Just block them. A discussion or a criticism when they have something to say is one thing. But straight troll, it's like block, move on, be happy with life, and talk about it on a podcast.
Yeah,
That's the best way.
I think that's a great.
Otherwise, you're like
that's
hours in your day. No, I gotta get him back. He said this.
He's wrong, and I'm going to tell him why he's wrong. Look, man, let me just tell you. Yeah, totally with you on that. I think that's unbelievable that you got that kind of communication with your audience.
It's getting tougher, but I do enjoy that aspect and the access. That's something in whitewater kayaking that's different from maybe every other professional sport that I know of, is that you can go to a river. If you have a certain amount of skill to be on a river that's going to still attract the best kayakers, you might be with the world's best kayaker that day. And they'll just be, your buds in there. Conversely, if you were into basketball, would you ever be able to play a game with LeBron James? Probably not ever. But you can go paddle with the best in the world, and that camaraderie is there even at that level. So I've tried to make sure that while I'm not on the world-class paddling level, I still would like to keep that communication with all the audience. Anyone who chimes in there, I'm trying to respond back. And so far, I've been able to do it. So if, I'm sure, if things grow big enough, I'll probably have to start picking and choosing.
Yeah, you just hire somebody.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you just hire me. Oh, no, I think that's wonderful. Sam, I know you're done.
Yeah, when it comes to, and this goes for both of y'all have a fairly large audience on YouTube, and when it comes to you start off, I'm sure when you put up that video, you get sucked into the whirlpool and passing away. You didn't imagine that would ever get hundreds of thousands of views, and now years and years of you putting in all this work and creating videos, and same with you start to build this audience, and you're probably shocked by the amount of views you're getting and how gratifying that is. At what point do you reach a threshold where it's like, okay, this is actually, when did you realize, like, oh, this is actually a job? Like, there's money coming into this, or monetization through YouTube or whatever. Like, when do you hit that threshold, and then how do you come to terms with that? And what does getting hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube mean for like making a career out of social media?
I think truly I'm still on the front side of anything like that. And YouTube is a views dominated So it's basically roughly $3,000 to $4,000 per million views. So you really need to make a true career out of just YouTube views. You need to be crushing it. I mean, you can do the math. What kind of living you could live on $3,000 a month, sure. You know, or you can live on, you know, 12,000 or 1,000. It just depends on what you want to do with your life, to what kind of living you want to make. But then I know some other YouTubers who are bigger than I that get sponsorships, like they'll get a brand new product and they get a check for doing a video with that product in it, you know, or sponsors per show, and then you know, maybe you use one kayak manufacturer, not any of the rest.
Yeah.
There's all those possibilities. I'm not really into that level yet. I just basically make a little gas money, and it helps me buy some of the equipment, camera stuff. But it's not really a living. It really started as a hobby.
Yeah, that's best case scenario.
You know, labor of love.
Labor of love, and now you can pay for the gear.
Hobbies that will in the least pay for themselves a little bit, that's a good hobby.
Yeah,
100%.
I'm with you. Like, I'm already going to do all this. I'm filming it. I was already filming it so we could have the memory.
Yep.
And I started putting on YouTube for the memory. Then I realized that people were chiming in, so it changed how I did it. And I, you know, instead of just being a trip with the song, that if the song would match the mood on the river, and if you were there with us, it would help you remember. My mom was telling me, well, if we weren't, no one knows what's going on. I said, well, we do. It was like, well, yeah, no one else does. So it's like, well, so I started narrating it, and that kind of drew everyone in.
Yeah.
I think more than anything. So I owe it to my mom. Thanks, Mom. And so yeah, so I still make what I want to see. When I watch YouTube, I try to make a video I want to watch.
Yep.
And they're way longer than they're supposed to be. I take out the mid-roll ads because I hate watching mid-roll ads. So I could probably do better if I was truly chasing that, but I'm trying to stay true to what I like to do.
Did you have, I guess this is for both of you guys. I obviously don't have a YouTube channel. So did you have video editing skills, like voiceover stuff, your narration? Did you have that from something previous, or did you just pick it up just to do your thing on YouTube?
No, not me. On the fly.
Yeah, OJT, I had I'm a drummer, so I'm a musician, so there's a little bit of that aspect, artistic, creative side, I guess, to it. And but no, I had zero training in any kind of editing. My first video was way before YouTube. I just got Movie Maker from what's on the computer, and I just made a video of the first year of highlights, and I had fun and like everyone who makes their first video, you got to use every effect in the template twice during the video. It's just,
we got the soundboard right here.
Yeah,
Hold on.
you got to use it.
Is it working?
Maybe it's not working.
That's a shame. There's like laugh track. And,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
So I threw everything into one, and some guy who does it for a living told me, hey man, you got some natural ability, but remember that they're there to see the content, not the effects.
Not the laugh track.
Yeah. So I just remember him saying that, and I just would make it. And do I like to look at that? If I didn't, I'd change something about it. And then I got a lot of help from some friends along the way.
everything's in slow motion.
Yeah. Yep. Everyone looks better in slow motion. That's a rule.
I think so.
Maybe not in podcasts. I don't know
Yeah.
how that works.
Yeah, but on film, man, slow motion is where it's at.
How about you?
Yeah, go ahead, Shane.
Same thing. I mean, mine was, you go back and look, and I think everybody that does YouTube will tell you kind of the same thing. You go back and look at their first video, and then look at their last video, and you can see the progression of them improving. And I mean, you can edit a video for nothing using some free software, some cheap software, or you can spend, like Pete's got a nice software editing, video editing software that is expensive, and he can do a whole lot more than I can with my cheaper stuff. But yeah, you can watch somebody progress same thing with you guys on your podcast. As you get better, you get better every day.
You guys, you'll be there one day. You'll get there.
I'm saying,
You get some nicer stuff and learn how to edit better.
well, you listen to your first one, right? You listen to your first one.
Yeah.
And Now look at what you've got. Your sound quality's better.
It's called damage control.
You know?
Where's that?
Take a sip, I'll take over, Shane.
Yeah, where's the crickets? Yeah, where's that?
No, I had Movie Maker on the computer was 15 years old. And let me back up just a little bit. My wife, I did a solo trip, source to sea on the Hall River to the Cape Fear all the way to the coast. 240 miles in 6 days. But I didn't have a GoPro. So I had to pull out high-A, whatever, video, handheld. And I would only pull it out if it was a boring spot in the river.
Yeah, where you didn't have to paddle.
Exactly. Or I didn't want to get wet. And my wife bought me a GoPro and said, if you're going to do a trip like that, you should at least record it. And I was like, all right. So up to that moment, and all my kayaking, whitewater, there was a few people with a few GoPros in their days, and we would laugh at it. Like, what kind of self-absorbed individual would wear that all day? Why not just go paddle? But now I regret not having it because it just records that, POV, memory, what you were seeing. And so I was doing that, but on this old computer, and it would take me a week, like literal week, waiting on the rendering of the computer to import, to do like a 15-minute video. And she, for my birthday for Christmas one year, bought me the best Mac that you could buy that year. Unbeknownst to me, coming up 27-inch. And so I could do that same 20-minute video in like 4 hours now instead of a week. I think she just wanted to see more of me.
Yeah, sure.
So, and
That's probably not good.
and so that was, no, she wanted me around to take care of the kids more. That's more like it. And then talking to a couple friends that do it for a living, they would give me input, and I kept asking about Final Cut Pro versus iMovie, which is way better than what I was using on the Windows computer. And Final Cut Pro is like the adult version of iMovie, and I would never open up any other program again.
Really?
Yeah, once you go there, now I can make that same 20-minute video in like an hour and a half or less. So, and it's way more powerful. You can do a lot more stuff with it. So it is important.
When you talk about negative comments, this goes for a question for both of you. So there's like this thing in the hunting community or the fishing community or whatever called spot burning. Do you know the term?
Yes.
So this is like when it comes to hunting or fishing, there's a finite resource there, and you can only have so many people get in there and enjoy it.
Yeah.
When somebody goes on, probably with the best intentions, and puts up a video of them having a good time, but has the GPS coordinates to the spot or talks about the location, people will get furious if they're a frequent user of that location because, you're bringing all these people, you have this huge audience, and you're bringing all these people to the spot. Does that happen in the kayaking, paddling community as well, or is it because it's there? And
It's not
it's not, it's not a consumable thing. It's just a trip that you can go on. You don't really have people getting mad at you about.
Actually, yes, in two different regards. In whitewater, you need to be good enough to be on a river safely, but some people will, it's almost a trolling mechanism in a way, but they will demonize the run they were on to make it sound much worse than it was. For two reasons, I think: to keep other people away and to make themselves feel better. Because if you're scared of it and I did it, then it's like building me up or something.
Sure.
So you want to be smart and safe, but I would rather encourage, if I can do it, everyone else can do it too. Just work up to it. But on the kayak camping side, on the trip we just did to Missouri, there was a couple comments about, great, this is my backyard run. Now it's going to be even harder. But this is a national wild and scenic river with foundations and websites. It's one of the most paddled rivers in America. Without River Kings, they don't need it. I found out from someone else. So when I paddled, there was a few comments about it. And I was like, I'm sorry that I paddled your river. No, it's a tourist river, and so it is a thing, but it's not as prevalent as hunting and fishing for sure. No good hunter or fisher will burn a spot. That's just,
I sure
Totally
would.
agree. Yeah. Did you say you sure would?
I sure wouldn't.
I
don't. I don't
anymore.
I do a lot of hunting myself.
Do you?
The videos I put up that are on the channel are caribou hunts in Alaska, but I mean that's federal land too. You gotta get bush pot.
Yeah, sure.
If I'm shooting deer, then You'll never know where that is, but
Mhm.
it does happen.
That's always be like, you just take my link.
Yeah.
Yep. So the reason that we're all here together beyond, getting to meet you and talk about y'all's stories together and all the things, is we've got a paddle trip coming up that we talked about in our episode with Shane a few weeks back. It's our first through paddle that we've done. And Nikki kindly gave me thank you, Nikki, gave me a sheet of kind of the specifics, the agenda for that paddle, which I'll run through. We have 15 spots still available, and hopefully we'll fill these up pretty quick. But you signed on to join us for this paddle about a week or so ago.
Mhm.
And since then, we've gotten like 20 more people signed up for the paddle,
Right.
which is for a first time event to have, to fill out the thing. It's hard. We've done events since we started here 5 years ago. And the first one's always hard. It's a new thing. People don't know what to expect. And you'll do the first one, then people have a good time. And then the second year, it's bigger. But for a first time event to fill out all the way through, right off the bat, it's great. It's great for us. And it makes it worth our time and all the effort that goes into putting on something like this. So we appreciate you coming on and joining us for it. And I'm going to go through the specifics of the paddle. So it's May 15th and 16th. Keep Davidson Beautiful has a cleanup scheduled for the morning of May 15th. And it's at the York Hill boat launch.
Yakin River Park.
Thank you. Yakin River Park. I said York Hill. I've always been saying
Locals, any local's gonna know exactly what you're talking about.
Fort York.
Fort York or Yakin Hill.
That's
All locals are gonna know. Otherwise, like if you're looking at it on the internet, you're gonna find Yakin River Park, the Davidson County Yakin River Park.
So the through paddle participants who are in need of the shuttle, you're going to meet us there at York Hill at the Fort York site, Yakin River Park. And shuttles are going to begin at approximately 11:30. So the cleanup is from 9 a.m. until then. So your ticket to get on your shuttle is you're going to come and pick up some trash at that site.
Whose idea was that? Was that you? Or was that Davidson County?
That was me and Chris Phelps.
Well, great idea.
Yeah.
I'm totally for it.
We're all about picking up trash.
Sure. We do the same thing.
It's
If I
amazing.
take out some put in, just pick a bag of trash up.
So we're going to transport y'all about 30 minutes to the 801 Concord Church put-in site, and you're going to paddle that second half of the day, stagger the groups to keep it.
Let me
Go ahead. Yeah, please.
So Concord Church. So putting in there, that ramp is, if you're backing a trailer in, so with kayaks, it isn't that big of a deal. But we have ruined 2 trailer axles on the same hole on that ramp.
Oh, is it the bottom end of the ramp just drops off?
It just drops off on one side and you will bend an axle in a heartbeat. So just FYI, if you're launching a boat that you got to launch off a trailer, that one there is one that would get your trailer every time.
That's good information.
That's a hot
It's a
tip.
trailer a year.
Yeah.
Continue.
All right, so we're going to stagger it to like 10 participants with each flight that goes out. So it's going to be, all COVID safe and fun. And we'll have all groups launched by about 1 p.m. There's going to be a relief station set up at Boone's Cave Park and allow participants to use the restroom, grab water, snacks, all that. And then we're going to end at the convergence of the Yakin and South Yakin River. The land trust has conserved some land there. So we've got a nice little camping spot. You're going to have supper, all that stuff, have a nice place to camp. It's beautiful. After that, in the morning, staff volunteers can drive. The great thing about this is you have your gear. If you, like yourself, the paddle trips that both of y'all do, you probably take all your gear with you and you have it down to a science where
You gotta have somebody picking you up or whatever.
yeah.
It's a whole
Oh, yeah.
thing.
Here, some people are going to be like y'all, where I've got everything I need right here on my kayak. Some people, hopefully, we're going to have some people that are new to this, and it's going to be maybe their first time or their second time. If they're getting to enjoy a new experience, they're not going to have it down to a science. And so heavier items, if they don't want to carry all their camping gear and stuff with them, we'll be able to shuttle that to the camping site and then to the takeout spot back at York Hill. So that is an option as well. It's not like you're going to have to carry everything with you. But I know Nikki sent out like a big list of camping equipment and like a packing list for all that. So we've got all that handled as well. But you do have the option to have some of your heavier gear shuttled to you at your camping spot. $75 per person. Additional $10 to rent kayaking equipment. T-shirts included. Dinners included on the night of the 15th. Lunch when you take out on the 16th included, and participants under 18 will need to be accompanied by a guardian. That's pretty much it. Anything else, Nikki, you want me to bring up?
If that sounds good.
All right, we need 15 more participants. So if you're hearing this,
All
join us.
skill levels. We've got
Yeah.
a gentleman that
That's
called,
right.
he's 71, he'll be joining us.
Well, that's exactly what I was gonna say, is this is the time where this is one of those things where you've always dreamt of it and thought about it, or you've done it a time or two and you didn't have a good time.
Yeah.
But you still thought it would have been fun. This is the time you can go and you're gonna be there with maybe some of the best people on the river, like you may be paddling with LeBron James. You may like LeBron James with kayaking while I'm here.
Mhm.
So this is your opportunity to see how the quote unquote pros do it, or just the regular Joe does it, and maybe like steal some of their ideas, see what they're packing. Like Shane just brought me something that's laying here in the floor to look at that I had no idea even existed until I talked to Shane. The flat sleeping hammock, because I've talked so much junk about sleeping in a hammock camping. He's like, this here is how you throw away your tent. And so things you learn just being around folks. So this is the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And be around folks that like the same things you do, care about the same things you do, and just genuinely want to have a good time.
Yeah, if you go onto a YouTube video of Shane's or whoever, in any hobby, really, and you go and look at, like, you're watching the YouTube videos and wondering how these people do this or that, well, this is your opportunity to meet with these guys in person, spend 2 days with them, and really look at their gear that they're carrying with them. And I mean, it's like living a YouTube video for 2 days and getting
You'll be in a
insight.
YouTube video.
Yeah, you'll be in a YouTube video.
Probably several of them.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, if I could speak to that real quick, that's one thing. While I respond to those comments like I was talking about earlier, I get probably 400 to 500 requests a year to paddle with people. And I know there may be some weird basement dweller out there as part of that, but most of those people I know I would really enjoy paddling with. I just can't make it happen
Mhm.
because,
There's not the 365
Yes.
days in a year, and
So-
you're not having all of them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Even if I was, someone would still be left out. So this is a perfect opportunity to get a bigger group in, where logistics, like y'all are saying, are gonna be handled. Any skill level, which is a thing, if I'm going on a river with Shane and the guys, maybe there's folks out there that would have trouble on certain rivers. And so rather than having to, try to vet out, can someone handle this river and go with us? And are we gonna enjoy them for a week?
Yeah.
Are they gonna enjoy us for a week? This is a great opportunity to, like you say, just kind of get out, meet a bunch of folks, all like-minded people, get down a river together, camp together. And I like the aspect of camping with a large number of people. I did a thing called Robin Sage, which is
Oh, yeah.
military. I did that for 10 years, one-on-one camps. And so I camped with 45 other people 8 times a year for 2 weeks at a time. And I saw every conceivable way to set up a camp in the woods.
Sure.
And you know what works, what doesn't work. But that guy's got, ooh, that's nice. Or you see something like, no, that's a trend. That's just, but you get to pick and choose. And we all kind of landed on the same kind of format that we do our camping. But as time goes on, someone might have a new piece of gear there that I've never seen, or we might have a way of doing it that y'all haven't seen. So there is a definite value to doing that. And you should always be ready to learn something.
Totally. With camping, like the thing I always wind up taking away from other people that camp a lot is something they cook. Like they'll have some kind of camp.
Yes.
Like you got a little camp thing that you do that I stole from you last time we talked. Like, so everybody's got a little camp cooking thing. It's like a little trick, a little amenity or something.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I'm always looking for. And then obviously gear and setting things up and packing.
I won't be your guy on that one. For me, food is what I have to do to keep doing whatever else is I'm doing. For someone like Shane, excuse me, food may be the focus. So they're going to bring their A game. Cross Paddles is going to be there. I know they cook a mean riverside lunch.
No kidding.
I'm talking. You might
Yeah,
have
that's
to have
something you
this
won't have to worry about for this one either. Yeah, for supper, we got smoked chicken and sides.
and that's better than Mountain House.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, way back. Compared to freeze dry.
I'm excited about the food.
Yeah.
Yeah, paddle up and start eating.
Nikki sent me, wrote out this thing. This is questions that she's gotten from people. So I'm going to read these as well, so that if you're interested in coming on this and you've got questions, I'm going to answer those. So we're going to meet at the location where the paddle ends,
Mhm.
right? You're gonna get shuttled from there. So that's Yadkin River Park. You're gonna leave your car there, and then 2 days later, when you come in, you'll be right at your car. So that's perfect, best case scenario. So that's one question that she had. So we'll shuttle everybody to the launch area. Food's gonna be provided at the camping area, the halfway point. There's gonna be a bathroom. There's gonna be bathroom facilities. There's actually a nice like open area before you can tent camp, and then we have a conserved property right across the road, really, really close with a bunch of trees. If you're a hammock camper, plenty of trees for you to do a hammock camp.
Bring your mosquito net or thermostat.
Bring your bugs.
I will tell you.
They're starting to pop right now, for sure. And then if you have any other questions, you're still interested, but we didn't answer something that you have, just email us, call us, whatever. Like I said, 15 spots left. I'm sure they're gonna go quick, but that's it on that.
Right on.
Good. Let's talk YouTube stories,
Okay.
or not YouTube stories.
We'll talk anything you want.
Either way.
I got
So,
stories.
that's what I've been told, and I don't know them, so that's why I'm looking forward to it. I know both of you guys got stories, all kinds of stories.
I got stories about Shane.
Let's have you got a okay.
I'm not allowed to ask that. I don't know what he's gonna say, but the only thing I know is if you go on a trip with River Kings, you've got to have a hammock for sleeping. You've got to have a hammock and underquilt, top quilt if it's cold, a dry suit and a PFD for sleeping.
So that's important.
Those are your five. So that's your 5 things for sleeping with the River Kings. So
Yeah.
you ask yourself, I'm in a hammock and I'm sleeping. Why do I need a PFD and a dry suit? Is it really that cold with a top quilt and bottom?
Yeah. That was what's called a classic redirect. That was back to a story about me. I like it. We can tell that story if you like.
Well, I'm already invested. Let's go.
Good move, Shane. I give you props.
Yeah.
So we'll save the good story for later. So we were at Missouri River, in Missouri, going down the Current River on that last big trip, and we were paddling with, coincidentally, Rodney Dillard. Are you familiar with the name? You watch Andy Griffith?
The one of the dealers?
Yes,
No kidding.
the main man, Rodney.
Rodney played the banjo. Never
Yeah,
spoke.
that's him.
Yep.
So his son, Brian, was the one who took us. And so I got to tell this story because it's kind of, you never know who's watching. So Brian was asking me about doing a trip on the Greenbrier, which is one of our favorites. And so I was sending him grids to where we camped, GPS location, and generally information. So he wanted to emulate our trip, recreate it with his crew. And he did it, and he showed his dad, hey, this is this guy, River Kings. He did the Greenbrier. This is where we're going to be. And that was one of my first videos, so not the best, but he really liked it and liked the area, so wanted to do that. Awesome river. Well, his dad's like, oh, nice. He goes on the trip. He comes back. He had some like big water experiences because it rained a ton, so he had to tell his dad some stories. Well, Rodney's in recording his last album called Dillard's Last Album. And in their studio, he shows up to say, hey, his dad, no one's in the studio. So he goes to like the den of his house. And in there in the den is Rodney Dillard, Don Henley, and Charlie Daniels watching River Kings. Supposedly, Don's a big fan. And he's a big canoeist and outdoor conservationist stuff where he's from. So he's supposed to want to meet. I guess I'm on his radar. I could probably make time for Don Henley.
Yeah.
You're busy. You're busy.
Yeah, but it's cool because you really don't know who's watching. So fast forward a little bit. We're on this trip with Brian because he's invited us up there. He's given us the red carpet treatment. We got, I think it was 3 or 4 inches of rain over a 2-day period halfway through the trip upstream, and then again on us. Long story short, the river went from about 1,000 CFS to 22,800. 1 foot, 1.2 feet or something like that to 14.8 feet. They closed the river up there somehow at 5 feet. They get you off the river, like the rangers in the state highway patrol do. So it was time to get off the river. And I knew since Brian Dillard had set up the shuttle through an outfitter, I just know this because I've been around it. They have to report that to the rangers.
That you're out there.
Yeah, that we're out there. They have to find us since we use the outfitter service, which is normally we don't use one. But in this case, they're looking for us. So the call was, they're looking for us. We found them, and so the ranger showed up and he was he had his sandwich in his truck. He was trying to eat lunch, and he got the call that we're calling them, trying to give them grids to where we were. He was smiling, like, well, this never happens. I was like, what's that? He goes, people who have the right gear, who are making good decisions, finding us, are like, you'll be back to your lunch in 20 minutes. But that night, overnight, where we were camping, when it was raining, it's just back in my mind. It's been raining for 2 days, hard, and the river hasn't come up. And it's like, what kind of little magic place are we in? If it rains for 2 days this far, the river's got to go up. I couldn't sleep, and I ended up checking, and sure enough, the water, it was flashing. So we got up at 2 a.m. I woke everybody up and said, put your dry suit on, your life jacket, then pack the camp up. So we packed it all down in the rain, and the little dry bed we were in ended up being in like 6 feet of water. But 20 minutes, the water had come up like 3 feet from when I woke everybody up.
Slept right through that.
Well up to the point you were floating.
Taking
Yeah.
a wet through your blown bones.
When I woke up, the other crew, there were 9 of us. That the other folks were losing their boats, were already starting to float back into the boat that would have been gone. So yeah, that's what he's alluding to. There was a time there about 3 a.m. when we just set up one more tarp. That's all we reset up. We're just going to wait it up till morning. So we're all in our life jackets, dry suits, and we're sitting there, and it's about 40 degrees. We're just sitting there waiting for morning. And Brian Hubbard, River King Brian, he's not a big fan of the rain. He was sitting there, we're laughing. He goes, I have my life jacket and dry suit on dry ground, trying to sleep. Like just like his moment, like not the trip he was used to.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes it gets rough. Awful, but awesome.
Yeah, and then if somebody great story to tell.
No one wants to recreate those moments, but
Oh,
I
we
love
talk
it.
about that all the time.
Yeah, they make it best stories.
Suck trips are usually the ones you remember. Like
Oh yeah,
we were talking about it with turkeys. Like the turkeys I remember are the ones that didn't get.
yes,
A lot of times.
yeah.
So yeah, totally understand that.
Like one thing, sometimes you can't help it. If it rains like that, you can't stop that. It's just something happened. There's other times where if you do a little bit of homework, even on Google Earth, before you put on a creek like the Hunting Creek. Would you like to talk to that?
Oh, that's a script.
It's actually over there on the South Fork of the Yadkin. It's what it is, but the locals, the way I understand it, locals call it Hunting Creek. And if you will look at Google Maps, we found a log jam that was probably 100 yards wide and 100 yards long that we had to get around on this trip. I did a trip over there a couple years ago, and it was, if we would have looked on Google Earth, plain as day, you can see, holy cow, we're not going to get around that. But sure enough, we traveled right up to it.
Yep. And
We had to drag it and carry it across and pull through it. And I mean, we spent probably an hour and a half, 2 hours trying to get past this.
What was your total mileage on that trip? I can't remember.
It was like 6 miles, took us 8 days or something. So it was, we ended up cutting the trip short because there was so many log jams. But
There was more toting a boat than paddling.
Yes, we spent more time out of the boat dragging it than we did.
So if you're going to do a trip, this is for all your viewers. If you're going to do a trip on a small creek, there's a principle you have to know that if the trees are taller than the creek is wide, they don't get washed out. So when they fall over, they stay and they collect debris.
Such a good point.
So you
Like,
need to know
such
that.
common sense,
Yeah.
but nobody thinks about it.
Yes. So there are lots of creeks. I like small creeks, but you kind of need to just do a little Google search. You can see on Hunting Creek, when I looked at it, it was a log jam. You can see on Google Earth like every 50 yards. So it's like, ooh.
Yeah, land trust is in the works of looking at a property on Hunting Creek for conservation.
We've got several.
We do have several, and there's some new ones potentially. And I went out and took baseline photos, which is an inventory of what the property looks like at the time of conservation.
Nice.
And I'd taken some photos prior, and then we met with the landowner. He wanted to change some things about the easement boundary. So I went back out. This is only a few months ago, but we were just talking about it. I feel like we're talking about this a few times every week, but there's 100-year flood 6 times a year now, every year.
Yeah, sure is.
So there was a flood that had happened a few months back, and I went out to an area that was a field off of Hunting Creek. Last time I went and took baseline photos, and I knew that it was going to be wet, so I took my waders with me to go take baseline photos of a place that was going to be dry, that was usually perpetually dry, and ended up going and walking around, belly button deep or more going taking photos of his agriculture field
Yeah.
off of Honey Creek. And I was watching logs flowing down the creek, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
But
that
it's
one,
out
for
of
some
control.
reason, that one's particularly
It's a
jammed up.
beautiful river though.
They could
It's a
probably do it
beautiful
now, because this was right before all the hurricanes that came in the last couple of years. And they probably got all washed out, so you wouldn't have had your good experience if you went now.
What an experience. I mean, we honestly, we'd paddle 50 yards and get out. Okay, here's another log jam. Drag it over, drag it under, carry it across.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was bad. I felt bad for you.
It was like, this is a good time for me to ask this, since we're talking about little creeks and stuff. So growing up, so I've always been interested in the adventure of paddling and seeing new country and
Oh, yeah.
and little creeks. And I grew up on little creeks. And so me and my brother would always look forward to the flood events, because that meant we could get the canoe in the creek and
Right.
go for a trip, which hindsight's, being an adult now, paddling floodwaters is probably not the best thing you can do, but
Right.
we were also into it.
Right.
We grew up doing it and knew these creeks very well, and wore a life jacket or whatever. But we would always look for when the creek got out and when the creek bottoms, it's time to go put the canoe in and see how far we could get.
Right.
And sometimes we make it to the bridge. We told Dad that we're going to be at. Oh, we can keep going. Let's see how far we can go. Let's see if we can make it all the way to the river. Or let's see if we can go to the next road to cross.
Yeah.
And we would do that for miles. Is that something that you, as River Kings, look forward to? It's like, the non-navigable water is all of a sudden navigable.
I do. I have, we call it micro creeking, and it's a thing in whitewater too, where you can take something you could just walk over and not get your feet wet. And you put enough rain in there, it's going to become something. And in fact, I give a plug to Kirk Edelman, world-class paddler. He goes up into the high country and will hike dry ditches in anticipation of what enough rain would make this look like, scouting it dry. And then he'll take his crew with whitewater boats on the back and maybe hike miles and miles up to do a first ascent on this. So yes, there's an aspect of this that's,
See, I like
yeah, it's then you got the first ascent and no one knows what it's going to be. And the whole thing may last 2 hours, because then the higher you get, the rain's gone. And the flow just washes out. Down here, the danger is strainers, trees in the water, debris that's not normally there. So I like to answer it like this. The adventurous aspect of the river when it gets up is always there in a whitewater river that doesn't have debris and logs and banks. And so once you get that level of excitement up in a river that's not designed for it, so you have trees along the banks, water flowing through trees down, it can get like catastrophic.
Oh, strainers are
Really
a big
quick.
deal.
Yeah. So typically we just don't encourage it.
Yeah.
But I do, and if you're going to do something stupid, do it in the least stupid way possible. So there's a bubble that happens on a river after rain. So as the rain falls, the river rises, it'll crest and come back down. General rule of thumb is to always chase the bubble. Don't get the bubble behind you. So if you're going in front of the bubble, you don't know what that's going to do. It hasn't done it yet. So watch, let it crest and come down. Most of the wood's gone at that moment. As it comes down, all the stuff that's going to be in the river has gone down the river, and you can get down a lot safer. So
Yeah,
be
there's-
smart. Yeah.
Yeah, there's certainly rivers that we've hosted paddles on, the Awori River,
Mhm.
where you have to certainly plan around weather events, because as y'all have done, I'm sure, the Awori River many times, on a really safe, super dry weekend, good luck. You're gonna be dragging your boat across rocks the entire way. And then we have a property, and I'll talk about, why we're invested in paddling and what the land trust has done and who we are for new listeners here in a second. But we own the property on Low Water Bridge Road.
Okay.
We surrounding that river access point. And it's called Low Water Bridge Road because there's a bridge that's very low.
Yeah.
When it rains, that bridge is probably underwater 20% of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, especially now, it's underwater all the time and it gets dangerous. So it's certainly, you have to be a paddler and be as serious about it as you guys are. You kind of have to be a meteorologist as well.
Yes.
And a hydrologist. And
there's definitely a science to it.
For sure.
One resource your viewers should know about is American Whitewater. Unfortunately, there is not this resource for flatwater rivers, but American Whitewater has mapped every navigable, accessible whitewater river in America, all 50 states. Hunting Creek's not in there because they have access issues. There's a whitewater portion kind of up top. There's no access, reliable access, so they don't want to put it on there until they secure that. But if you know what river you want to paddle, you can check out American Whitewater. It'll give you a minimum, maximum level and a source, a gauge source. So you can look at the USGS gauge, start learning the river, and then maybe start out low on a river,
Work way up.
get to know it as it goes up because things can change. 8 inches of river, a lot of times they'll put those gauges at a constricted place on the river so they can maximize the difference you see on the gauge. Well, that may be a 20-yard section of the whole river. So if it's gone up 6 inches, where you're at and the big fat wide part that put in, it may be like rocking and rolling, may have gone up 2 feet down later.
That's a great point that we've never talked about on here before. Yeah, those gauges are almost always at the most restricted point where they can get the most fluctuation, the best reading. So yeah, it makes a huge difference. And I took a duck hunting place one time where I was like, look, when this gauge hits X number of feet, your motor ain't gonna pull going upstream. It's just not.
Yeah.
The electric motor. I was like, it's not gonna do it. And we were like teetering at the point of it's gonna hit this. And it hit it while we were there.
Yeah.
But it was like we knew we were gonna leave about the time it was gonna hit it, so we went anyways, and it was fine. But
Nice.
yeah.
We're running the motor and paddling.
Yeah, manpower and electric power all on the same.
I think I know where you were, but I'll ask you later.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't
No
tell.
spot working, can't tell.
I love it.
For people that follow the River Kings and may come to this episode of our podcast because you're following Pete, I'm going to tell a little bit about the land trust, who we are, and why we're even having paddles in the first place, and what a land trust even is. So we're a land conservation organization that services 15 counties here in North Carolina. We used to work in 10 counties up until about 2 years ago, just the central Piedmont area, but merged with a different land trust and took over 5 counties in the Sandhills. So the 3 rivers was a rebranding during that merger. And those 3 river basins in which we work are the Cape Fear, the Yadkin PD, and the Lumber River. So one thing that this staff has done is really try to, Nikki, it's just work as many events as possible right now, especially during COVID. We're working a lot of weekends, trying to get people outside to enjoy our natural resources here and to engage with us. And by kind of chasing that model, we've really grown as an organization and have built some authenticity as outdoors people of all kinds. We're not only a paddling group. We have programs for hikers. We have hikes and host hikes, and we host archery events, and we have a hunting program. When anybody that's under the umbrella of conservation, we try to cater to, and everybody's welcome because we want everybody to be working together to conserve land. So back to paddling, one thing that we've done just to tout our authenticity and why we do the work that we do and host paddles like this is we've done. I'll start with this paddle trip in particular. So along the Yadkin River, it's been one of our focal areas we've been around for 26 years. In 2019, we closed on 2,400 acres of the Alcoa lands, which is pretty much from Highway 601, kind of above the merger of the South Yadkin and Yadkin Rivers, all the way down to High Rock Lake. We protected 2,400 acres that's now owned. We helped to, with the state of North Carolina and other agencies, raise millions of dollars and conserve that 2,400 acres so that when you do this paddle, if you sign up with us, you're not going to be passing a bunch of houses. You're going to be passing conserved land all the way down. That's going to be conserved and protected forever. It's going to be green space. It's publicly accessible and an awesome resource for the people of North Carolina. On that same paddle trip, you're going to pass a fee-owned property, the Point property, owned by us, that's managed by Cody and to a degree myself, that we're very proud of and have put in a lot of work to be kind of a beacon of what sound management for wildlife looks like. I mean, if you go in and put in the 601 launch off of the South Yakin and float down to the camping spot where we're going to be at the intersection of the South Yakin and Yakin River, you pass one house on that whole float. And that's in a large part due to Three Rivers Land Trust and the work that we've done. So when we set up this paddle in the first place, it was really just to not only to have fun and get people outside and provide an opportunity for people to enjoy the land that we've conserved, but also to show people the land that we've conserved. I mean, you know, it's we want people to see it, because until you actually see it, it's just abstract.
Sure.
And when you're on the river and you're floating for miles and you're seeing green space and you're not seeing homes, you realize, you know, oh wow, this is really something.
Yeah.
So on the Yakin River, Cody was instrumental in just landing the Hannah Ferry river
I'm sure you
access.
guys have both launched there or took out there numerous times over the years. Now, where are you from exactly, Pete?
Burlington area.
Burlington. So I'm sure you took out at Hannah's Ferry what was called the pump station. That's where the confluence of the South Yakin and Yakin.
Gotcha. I realize that.
Yep. So for years, that was a launch site, vessel retrieval site. Was originally Hannah's Ferry, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the Crowther family, they owned that property and they allowed access to the public to access the river for fishing and boat launch and retrieval. Alcoa Power Generating came in. They needed X number of sites for their relicensing. Part of their licensing agreement to operate dams is recreation, right? So they operated that site, picked up the trash, kept it maintained to a degree.
But really, this is a handshake deal between the Crowther
There's
family
never anything
and the corporation. Yeah.
in writing saying this is going to be perpetual. But over the years, people just assume, generation after generation use this launch, and people just like, oh, this is a launch. It's always been here. It's always here.
Yeah.
And this is where we go. Well, unbeknownst to the public, it was about to go away. A couple of years ago, I got a phone call from a guy that said, "Hey, there's a such and such blocking the ramp. I can't put my boat in. What's the deal?" I wonder, well, why are you calling me?
Right.
I don't know. And I do some research and find out, I knew that the Crowther family had a conservation easement with us on that piece of property. And and a little even more than just a conservation easement. But come to find out that Alcoa had decided they weren't going to operate that site anymore, so nobody was maintaining it, nobody was enforcing it, nobody was keeping it up. And the Crowther family long since vacated keeping it up themselves with Alcoa keeping it up. So, and why would they? That's not really their job. So I did some digging into it and wound up talking with the Crowther family, with our executive director. He did most of the talks with them. And they agreed that, yes, we want this site. Our dad, our grandfather, they wanted the public to be able to see the river and use the site. Yeah. So we wanted it open. And so we were able to connect them with the Wildlife Resources Commission and with us and with the Clean Water folks, who also have a vested interest in that property, in order to exterminate the conservation easement on that portion that the boat ramp sits on, so it could be available for improvements, such as, the parking lot, some water control in the boat launch area, so it's not sediment in and that kind of thing. Just minor things, no development, but, the minor things that you need to have a nice boat launch.
Yeah.
And so after about 3 years, we finally closed the deal on that thing. So it's now perpetually owned by the state of North Carolina, the Wildlife Resources Commission. It will be a boat launch forever, as far as I know, unless the Wildlife Commission drastically changes their mission statement. And so that's great news for the public of North Carolina, the paddler, the fisher, the hunter, anyone who's accessing the river for whatever reason. That's great news for you.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm not going to say all because of Three Rivers, but the Crowther family and Three Rivers played an integral part in making that boat launch happen. And you as a user probably didn't even know that it was even going on.
Yeah, I think that's the point. And that's why we have these paddles and we're having discussions about it is, it's easy to take what's there for granted.
Yeah.
And, a lot of hard work has gone into raising money to protect the 2,400 acres that you're going to be paddling along. I mean, a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of money and a lot of years and hours spent working on this project. It was our biggest project. And in 2019, it closed. And then that gave us the option to get a 2-year extension to try to close the section below IROC, on the eastern shore of Tuckertown Reservoir. There's another 2,300 acres or so, 2,400 acres, that we now have first right of refusal with the state of North Carolina to try to purchase as well.
Nice.
In September of 2021, that expires. So we have until September of 2021 to raise the $8 million plus that it takes to close that as well. But that's what Three Rivers is doing just on the Yadkin alone, along with we played a role in some conservation at York Hill.
The goal is not to privatize anything. It's to always be public
Gotcha.
like it is now. So
Yeah.
same with
And undeveloped.
same with that book launch, like, you say we're raising money to close it. It sounds like we're raising money to purchase it, to conserve and just own it and keep
Sure.
it. So that's not the case.
Right.
So just want to be clear on that. But yeah,
Yeah.
continue with your.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. That 2,400 acres that was money, the way the land trust contributed was we privately fundraised for property that we closed on, that we turned all the money that we fundraised and gave it to the state of North Carolina to purchase that. We have no ownership.
Yeah.
So I think that's
It aligns with our mission of conservation.
Yeah.
It's
And I can-
about
yeah. I can say, paddling all over, you can tell when there's been a neglect for conservation on a river. Because it will inevitably lead to like shanty town along the banks. And one perfect example is the Greenbrier in West Virginia.
So I started to say you're
Yeah.
in West Virginia.
Well, West Virginia is amazing. But the downside is, anyway, the top portion of that is, it's the longest undammed river east of the Mississippi. So when they put the Bluestone Dam in on the New River, they intentionally did not catch below the confluence because the coal industry was running trains up down the Greenbrier. So they put the dam just for the New River. So in modern era, there's a lot of talk because, they can check water levels with dams and keep flooding. There's a lot of control they can have with that. The downside is that, you'll lose the river. So you kind of make a lot of bounce. But as you come down the Greenbrier, you go from one of the most pristine mountain settings, not through necessarily all conservation. It's so steep you can't develop it. And so it's really remote. But as you come in towards the lowland, as the river gets wider, it's like there's just a little fish house camps all the way down. It just destroys the experience for you. Contrast that with something like the Namakogan, St. Croix rivers up in Wisconsin, right there with the border with Minnesota. It was the first, I think, National Wild Scenic River, and whatever development was there after the government bought it, they took it out. Houses, anything along the way is gone. There's a couple houses. I think the whole 150 miles we saw like 4 houses. But if you've never paddled in a place like that, it slaps you in the face. Like, it's fun to be on like a river that goes remote and maybe comes into a town and you kind of refuel. But when you can go 150 miles and there's no town, there's no house.
You're in the wilderness.
Yeah. But it's also, they maintain sites for campers. They prefer you to stay on site. In some areas, I think they require it. But people just don't know. I've also known a big, complete lack of understanding about how like trespass laws work. Someone owns every piece of land on this planet. Someone owns it. It's in America. Someone owns it. So like, well, no one owns it. It's on the river. No, someone owns it. And well, they own it. I don't see why we can't just use it. It's like, well, they see why you can't just use it. They own it. So there's a big conversation. I'm sure y'all get it, but especially in whitewater. Oh yeah.
On stream access laws.
Yes.
And
So-
blue laws in general.
Take Hunting Creek, for example. I know one outfit that is running trips up there regularly and there's no access for it. So they're like door knocking each time, but they're trying to take people. They're not taking money for the trips, but they're taking newer paddlers out there. And so they've had armed landowner conflicts. And then you'll hear the banter some guy running around is probably with an AR, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, that's not illegal. You know, you can run around your own private AR, but the conflict is happening. The landowner doesn't want him there. The landowner doesn't own the river. The paddler doesn't want him there. The paddler thinks he owns the river. You know, it's so, and there's log jams invariably from time to time, and they're on video portaging a log jam on trespass land. And like, no, well, we had to portage. They need to understand that. It's like, no, that's not how it works. It's like, so understanding, I think, from all sides that if you don't have access to the land, you don't have access to the land. There's no magic wand you can wave. Because I'm here and I want to, I can use your land. So what y'all are doing is so overlooked by I mean, I'm a landowner, so I know. I don't want people just traipsing around on my property.
Nobody does.
But no one does. But if you're wanting to enjoy yourself, a lot of people just expect they can use whatever property's there. So, like you said, they take it for granted. That's 100% true. In the whitewater community, there's a lot of activists. I say it in a good way, that are always working with, sometimes against the state or the Fed, whatever, to maintain those recreational opportunities. Getting just, where do you park your car at put in? And so I know up on the Green River, that's one of the best rivers on the planet, Class 5 paddle. It took them, I think, 15 years, but they finally secured a parking lot where it's a permanent parking lot now that you can park. Otherwise, you can't park. It's, you know, they've had some parking spaces and you buy a key to help support the ongoing leasing of it, but they got all the money now. They've got the permanent place. So it's a big deal to have folks like your outfit out there making these opportunities available, and people don't even know what you're doing, how you're doing it. So it's definitely important.
Yeah, sure. I would say the Yadkin River stretch that y'all are going to do is not the most thrilling, like paddle, like adrenaline pumping paddle that you're ever going to be on. But I think there's a few reasons that we all go out and enjoy nature in the way that we do. Some people are seeking that adrenaline rush, but I think everybody is seeking an escape.
Yeah.
And a solitude and a connection with nature. And if you go and do a paddle and you're hearing cars honking and you're looking at people's backyards and seeing their chain link fence and stuff, that illusion of escape is kind of ruined a little bit.
As well as just general health of the river sometimes.
100%.
Yeah, people, what they're doing at the banks or not doing, you know, it's the health of the river is impacted when you can have some places set aside, go in here, take up there. Conflicts are down, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
It's just
Absolutely agree.
I think another one, which y'all have done, I've brought up, but it's another focal area of our organization is the Uwharrie River. So where the Uwharrie River and the Yadkin River merge is where the PD River begins.
Right.
So
I hate that. How do you feel about that? I'm just like that.
All
I
right.
came up to that. I don't.
So are y'all familiar with stream water?
Yep.
So I'm just OCD enough that anybody with a brain knows that the primary stream water river should keep its name.
we totally with you.
What are we
talked
doing?
about this.
If you go to Tennessee, I just did a video on the Obed. It's in the plateau, the Cumberland Plateau there in Tennessee. An amazing geological. Even if you don't paddle, y'all should go hike. There's hunting, I think. I'm thinking there's hunting to do there. But go check it out. Amazing place. Canyon walls, all for miles and miles and miles. And you're on Daddy's Creek. Amazing whitewater, amazing scenery. And then you hit the Obed River. Daddy's Creek is bigger than the Obed River. But Daddy's Creek becomes the Obed River. I was like twitching a little bit. Well, you go down a little bit further, the Obed's getting bigger and bigger. It's just a phenomenal river. And then you hit something about the size of, I don't know, it's probably 20 feet wide. Like 1/15 the size of the Obed. And then it becomes that river. I forget the name of it. You told me, but Kurt, the guy that told me that's his backyard. He was talking about Obadiah was the big explorer, so he had the Obed. And then this other guy was a bureaucrat, and he wanted the river from there down as it came out.
Is that
of
what
the
you
canyon.
name a creek after yourself?
Yeah.
Daddy's Creek?
No.
But yeah, so I asked Kirk about it because Kirk's a geologist. He's got his degree, and he's just an amazing source of knowledge on all things. And I'm like, I want there to be a rhyme and reason. In some places there is.
Mhm.
Most of the place there is, but when you get to bigger rivers, like the Hall and the Deep Creek converge, it becomes Cape Fear. Like, well, were they exactly the same primary, stream water? No, it's just someone decides.
Yep.
And he says, don't go to Mexico.
Oh,
I was like, yeah. He goes, yeah, like literally a bridge is an important part of their culture.
oh, on one side of the bridge, it's such and such a river. On the other side
Well,
of the bridge,
the rivers literally are renamed from bridge to bridge.
oh.
It's like, and some bridges, he's like laughing, but some bridges, I guess, they're not worthy of a name change on the river. So you like, the rivers from here to here is called something, from here to there, it's like not even close to the same thing. You just gotta know where you are. I was like, no, that's terrible. I'm with you. I
You
can't
have
stand
a
it.
you have a whole thing about renaming. We've had this discussion about like if I was in control of the DOT, here's what I would do. But I feel like I know your number one thing, which would be you rename all roads from where they're going to where they're ending, and
Yep.
where they're on either side. So it's like
Like Glendon Carthage Road,
the
for example.
Salisbury to Knoxville Road or something
Yeah.
like that.
instead of US Highway 601,
Mhm.
then it becomes Jake Alexander.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this is another thing I've dealt with. All those are old colonial trading paths.
Yep.
And there was just however they could get from one place to another. My seventh grade grandfather built some of the roads on Deep Creek near Coal Ridge. And he lived there as Bexford on. And so we still use the same exact road that was pre-Revolutionary War. It's the same road.
Yep.
If you go to Alaska or anywhere where the concept of city planning took form before the city was planned or built, all roads that go north-south are A, or, numbered, all
Mhm.
east-west are lettered.
Yep.
And you know exactly where you are all the time. The whole city's a grid.
Down Montana.
Yeah, exactly. Anywhere out west.
And everything.
You come back here and it's like, you're just used to it. But my friends that come here from out there, how do you know where you are?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You just go, keep going, you'll find something.
Yep, seriously.
Gazetteer.
Yeah.
Yeah, gazetteer, that's a hot tip.
Yeah.
That is a hot tip. If you both have one, I'd like to get my hands on yours.
No,
Cody's got.
It'll be buried in my coffin.
Yeah.
Because it's like all
It's
earmarked.
got everything that a man
Oh,
needs
it's
to know.
got the burn spots.
He's got the good stuff.
Yeah,
Oh.
the spots that could potentially be burned forever.
Burn the
You're not the only one. Jeremy Harrell, who's the
Uh-huh.
conservation officer, he's figured out a way to get a warrant and get that thing.
Yeah.
He wants it for trout spots.
The Award River, which I was talking about a second ago, just going back to some of the things that we've done, which I'm proud of and think it's worth saying, because anybody I think we'll have a lot of people who like to paddle here in North Carolina or beyond North Carolina listening to this, and we have some great rivers that we should share. The Land Trust has done many things along the Award River to help access. The first being we own a 1,500 acre fee-owned property, and we opened up access with the state of North Carolina with the Wildlife Resource Commission in 2012 at the Low Water Bridge road access point. So that's a love to death river access spot.
Almost love to death.
Yeah, no, it's a great spot. I mean, it is. And any Saturday you go down there, it's gonna be popping.
Yeah.
From there, we played a role in the addition of the Highway 109 access. The Land Trust did, which the state owns, the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission owns and operates off of Highway
It was
109.
an abandoned road bed,
Mhm.
the old one. Now.
Yep.
So from there, you go from Low Water Bridge down to 109. And then from 109, you go down to the cable track. The Land Trust purchased the cable track. And that's where the Yadkin River meets the Uwharrie River and becomes the PD above Tillery.
Yeah.
So we purchased that. The Land Trust actually went into debt buying that
Yeah,
property.
take out a lien to
Uh,
get it, bought it, and then sold it at a deeply discounted rate, like millions discounted
Oh, wow.
to the state. So they could own it for game lands, public access on the land, but
Nice.
also boat launch.
And there's a new boat launch there. So the 3 boat launches there on the Uwharrie River, the Land Trust played a role in every single one of them. So I think it's worth noting, because I mean, that's a very popular.
And it's a whole river that you would not access without, an organization such as ours kind of. gives us some
Yeah, and
access.
I didn't even say anything about, that's all just access. But I mean, we're a land conservation organization along with riparian corridors as well. So we conserve land all along that stretch as well. So it's not only have we provided access, but we provided that that riparian buffer that makes the paddle trip fun in the first place and gives you that illusion of escape.
You ready for a segue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Please. This is for both of you. Well, for everybody. Even you, Nikki, this is for everybody. So, talking about repairing corridors. So, as humans, historically, rivers have been the kind of a really easy, great mode of travel.
Yeah.
And cities have popped up around rivers and commerce, and same for wildlife. So we're lacking these migration corridors that are continual, and that's one thing that land trusts all across the nation are trying to do. We're trying to get continuity back for migration corridors. Like you mentioned, going to Alaska, hunting caribou. So that caribou herd, which I'm assuming is probably a 40-mile herd, that you were probably hunting.
No, it was the one up out of Koski.
Okay, so there's only 3.
Yeah.
So you're hunting the second largest one.
Yeah.
So,
It was the largest at the time.
okay, so a little harder hunting, but it was large at the time, I guess maybe not. But still tough.
Yeah.
But there's YouTube, there were millions of herds of them. And because of continuity issues and their migration routes being dissected and bisected, we lost them. So the thing with riparian corridors, here's what's coming around. We're able to still keep some of that continuity by, just preserving what's right along, preserving right along the stream. So what's the coolest, weirdest thing you saw, not human, but animal-wise on the riverbank? Because working around river properties, being on the river all the time, we see critters that people don't think are here.
Right.
Seen black bears in the Piedmont of North Carolina because that's where males like to travel. It's the one place that's not developed. They'll follow the river. It's like a highway. So what's something cool that you've seen on one of your many adventures? What's the cool thing that you've seen?
Well, just from the last trip, we had 2 neat things and 1 funny thing. Brenda, which is Brian Diller's wife, was sleeping, and she's always getting sketched out about little animals and stuff, raccoons, whatnot. Well, she heard someone messing with her at about 3 a.m. Figured one of the guys had to get up to use the bathroom, was just going to play a prank on her, probably her husband. And so she's like, just listening, and she hears like the breathing. She's like, maybe it's a wild boar. So she just froze up, sitting there, sitting in her hammock. And it was coming up. She's like, that's got to be one of the guys. And it kind of bumped her a little bit while she was in her hammock. And then she could smell the wet hair, like a stinky animal. And well, it went on its way. But in the morning, her step out pad out of her hammock, she had a wipe, and there's a bear paw. It was a cub, but it was a bear. So I was like, well, that's pretty cool. But then later in the trip, we actually saw Momo on the riverside, which a lot of people don't believe in Momo.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's the Missouri monster.
Obviously, they didn't watch that video.
I
haven't
watched that one.
I haven't watched it yet.
But as part
Teasers.
yeah. But you have to watch the video, but Momo is sort of like Sasquatch in Missouri. In the Ozarks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm tracking.
We got the first ever documented video proof of Momo's existence.
What's the title of this video?
Current River?
Current.
Yeah.
Okay.
Part
Okay.
1.
I think it's part 1, yeah.
Was it part 1?
Part 1.
Well, there's only 2 parts.
There's
Right?
only 2 parts.
So yeah, it's part 1.
How about you, Shane?
It was.
All right, he's seen a one of a kind. Top that. I mean,
I can't top that. I've had two kind of pretty cool things. We were on the James River a couple years ago, and a bear just come walking through camp. Where he was just down the river a little piece. Like, he's, hey, this is my area. Y'all need to get up and get out of here. And then we had the same thing. I was on the New River 2016, 2017. And we had just pulled off on the side of the river and set up the bank. We were in the, I think we were in the state park area, New River State Park. And a deer just walks, you could hear something coming through the woods, and I knew it was fairly big earth. And he just walked in and looked at us like, why are y'all here? Because this is where I go to the creek every night and get my drink of water, and y'all are in my way, and I get out of here. And he looked at me for like 3 or 4 minutes, just stared at me, and we had a little conversation. I don't know if he understood what I was saying, but he turned around and walked off and just went back up in the woods. And I was like, I guess we were in his spot tonight. But that, I thought it was pretty cool because he just kind of hung out with us for a minute.
Cody, I know you're dying.
No, skip me.
What'd you see?
I've seen all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the point. I mean, it's, you see, that's like, we talk about going duck hunting.
I think there's something here that's going to damage your credibility.
No, I haven't
You
seen
saw
anything.
it.
No, I haven't seen anything that didn't happen. haven't seen anything that's not documented.
Okay.
But I have seen some rare critters, for the Piedmont black bears in particular. Never a panther or cougar, anything crazy, but, seen some cool stuff, a lot of cool stuff on the river.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the point. Again, with going out on the river and why you do it in the first place and why conserved areas or protected areas along these rivers are important is we're all going out there in the hopes of seeing something that you don't normally see. And that's, whether it's hunting and hiking or paddling or whatever it may be. So that's part of the deal. So yeah, all of the coolest things I've ever seen have been on adventures like that, usually in riparian areas, and you see all the critters that you don't normally get your eyes on. So, I mean, you could go down the list and name any single one of them.
Yeah, I'd say the most unique one I've seen on the river is the mink.
Yeah.
Because we just don't have that many of them around here. And you do see they are here.
Yep.
And I've seen them on the yak and I've seen them on the Uwari. So it's pretty neat. Here to see them family. Like you got bucked by a beaver and heard kayak time or two. What you got, Nikki?
What'd you show me on my third day at the land trust?
Oh gosh, I don't remember.
A flying squirrel,
Oh yeah.
right there at the point property.
Yeah, I remember that. That's right. Sure enough. We got a pile of them.
I've never seen a flying squirrel in person.
I can show you a pile. Because the point where you guys are across the river from where you're gonna be camping is absolutely covered.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I've never seen
I'd like to
something.
see one.
There's a pile.
That's nice.
It's like good management.
I think,
there.
I'll just go ahead and throw this out. I think you two guys owe it to yourself to come on a River King trip.
I'd
Like a
love
real
to.
trip.
Yeah, it'd be super fun,
I'd
man.
love to.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd be, this is why I wouldn't go. If I didn't go, I'd feel undergeared. I don't like feeling undergeared. Like you guys probably got. See, I'm gonna show them the stuff that I camped with from college, and you guys are gonna be like, "Oh, that's crap. This is what you need."
Bring a clean shirt and a clean pair of drawers. Go to Pete's house. He's got everything else you need.
I'm into shopping at Pete's house.
There you go. On our last episode, Cody loves bringing it up, but I'll bring it up again because on our last episode, Cody was asking like, what's your guilty pleasure that you like to bring on your camping trip or whatever, whenever you go paddling? Because Sam's got a weird one, and I always take a pillow with me, like a full size. That's my
That's
thing.
my
Yeah, I know. Y'all,
You just Cody on the trip.
You don't bring pillow, do you?
heck no.
Yeah, sorry, we'll do a trip.
as long as you got the people pillowers and non-pillowers. Oh, man. It's my guilty pleasure. Do you have one?
I don't take one.
Do you have a guilty pleasure though, like a pack?
Oh,
that's guilty pleasure?
A chair, a camp chair, like it's a backpacker ultralight thing, but,
That's a good one.
well, I'll say that there's a lot of different ways to camp that border on existing.
Dude, I'm more on
Really
the end of existing. Like I like to have less and just make it.
Yes,
I don't need.
so that's
I
a
don't need-
minimalist mindset.
I don't need.
Like when I was doing
everything.
the military job, there's no, when your backpack
Yeah.
or your ruck is so heavy already with essentially, like, you're not bringing anything. You're not sitting in a chair anyway. So we would go out and literally, you'd be walking to go hit a target or something. And this is where we're staying for now. So you just sit up against a tree.
Mhm.
And if it wasn't your turn to sit laying in the prone watching the woods for evil raccoons or something, then you just lay in the dirt. And in the morning you wake up and start walking in. You don't set anything up. You don't even take your shoes off. And it's just there. And so if you would just understand that that's on the menu for one way to do it, everything else is just how do you want to spend your time?
That's how I feel. My buddies hate me for it.
Yeah.
It's like the menu is we're gonna be there.
So yeah, if you're good with like just as little to take with you as possible. Other people want the whole kit and caboodle. And that's actually a funny thing when someone gets into camping with me, I can watch them like they go out, it looked like they just put their arm in the shelf and went to Walmart and just took one cart at a time each Saturday. I was like, some of this is like, it's like fishing course. Some of them catch fish, some of them catch fishermen. You know, so they went out there and just took all, you know, you're not going to do that. You know, leave that home, leave that home. And we go on these trips. Yeah. You never pull that out of the boat. You never pull that out. Take that if you want. But it's just a matter of how you want to spend your time.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think when it, like the pillow thing is somewhat of an off-brand thing because I'd rather not have a chair. I mean, there's a lot of things that I leave. I've camped so much that I found that like, oh, I sleep really good when I have it. It's not that big of a deal to bring it. I'm bringing it.
Yeah,
I'm bringing it.
So I got a solar power kit that runs it's waterproof, stays on the outside of my boat. And so I have a lot of, like electronic accoutrements that, I mean, it's weight. Like,
Yeah, sure.
I'm not in the, I have ultralight stuff, but I would be like shunned by the ultralight community if they ever went on a trip.
Well, that's the good thing about kayak camping.
Yeah, it carries it for you.
Canoe camping is, yeah, you don't have to worry about the weight. You can pack whatever your boat's rated at. And
Yeah,
be good.
I gave an aneurysm to a lot of backpackers a couple years ago. We did a pack rafting trip. I don't know if you ever heard of a pack raft.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
They weigh 4 pounds.
I'm into it. I would love to own one.
Yes, they're expensive.
Yeah, they are.
Alpaca sent me the stuff. All I had to do was pay the shipping to get it back to them after the trip. But we went up top of Grandfather, hiking the Chutes and Ladders Trail to the top of Callaway Peak, then broke off the south face and bushwhacked down the front side till I found the spring head of Wilson Creek, which is a National Wild and Scenic River. And it was like just a trickle coming
Yeah, I was like
across.
thinking about that spot burning button right now.
So we bushwhacked for 35 miles, just following the creek bed with 65-pound packs that had the boats, the gear, the paddles, life jackets, helmets, and then all our backpacking stuff and everything else for the 4 or 5 days until we could blow the raft up. Then we put everything in it and went on.
Yeah.
But you can see some people like where we put on, incidentally, happened to be Mortimer, a little town up there. I don't know if you
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We know Morgan.
the hot dog spot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we could have left all the river stuff and the resupply with them, but those are like $1,500 a pop. And I kind of know those people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, or we could have cached them,
Mhm.
you know, somewhere off a forest road, but then you're leaving $5,000 worth of stuff. What if someone gets lucky and walks up on it? So we carried that the whole way, and people were like, "You could have just left that and picked it up at the river." I was like, "Yeah, we could have," but it was part of the experience. Was walking up a mountain to the peak of one of the taller mountains in the area with a boat on your back.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And people were like, "What are you doing?" We're like, "Isn't there a pond up here?" Just messing with folks. No.
Yeah, now y'all don't paddle through the gorge. Do you?
Yeah.
Y'all paddle through the gorge?
Oh yeah,
Y'all are wild.
it's called unsanctioned.
Yeah, y'all are wild.
No, the gorge is, I paddle the gorge probably 30 times. It's probably the most paddle bigger run I do because it's easy, kind of close to home.
That's probably one of my favorite.
My 12-year-old
Sure,
son
it is.
paddled it last year for the first time.
That's big water.
Of the big water, that's small water.
Is it?
Yeah, that's kind of
Those
a
are
safe.
those are go-to in college. Those along the gorge.
Did you paddle?
Yep, we did.
Oh, you're whitewater
Mhm.
paddler.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call myself, I'm not saying with you guys, but I had whitewater.
Did you paddle the gorge?
Yeah.
Oh. Have you
That's
paddled
like-
gorge?
no.
Oh, see, this is really working out even better. This is gonna be a great trip.
Yeah,
What I imagine is that movie, A River Runs Through It, where you're the McLeans and you and your brother go out.
Oh, this is definitely how it was.
And yeah, so when he says he paddled it, it's like he went over to his neighbor's house and they stole his wooden boat, his wooden like
No.
John boat, and they put it in and it's like, we're shooting the chutes. We're going down the Wilson Creek. Yeah, we're shooting the gorge and we're going down the gorge and you broke the boat all to pieces.
No, that wasn't it.
Uh-huh.
No, this was college. We actually had decent stuff.
Nice.
Decent stuff.
Do you whitewater paddle?
No. Mm-mm.
You look like a whitewater paddler.
Oh, thanks, man. Is that a compliment?
I think we should find out.
I mean, I'd love to. It'd be fun.
We're gonna have to do something.
I'm in there.
I'm in it.
I'm in
You
there.
down?
My,
I'll be on Wilson Creek this year.
I will tell you, my current kayak setup is not conducive to life.
I got you covered. I got 27 kayaks.
Okay, well,
That's why
we're like,
all the excuses. I'm not bringing it.
you need a t-shirt and a pair of drawers. That's it.
I'm not bringing it.
So, I take a lot of, part of the channel this year, kind of segueing a little bit, I was not into the whitewater as much over the recent years since my son and my daughter was born. I would still do it 3 or 4 times a year on something big and something of quality. That if I'm going to spend, get my little brownie points. I was saving all the brownie points for these long, multi-100-mile, 8-day trips I was doing with the guys, which none of my friends in the River Kings were paddlers before they paddled with me, like zero experience. So each year the river we could do got a little more exciting, into some class 4 stuff we were doing. And that's fun in the longboats. But then my son came to me and wanted to be a whitewater paddler. And this was last year, about January, February, one of the floods, the river was up and he was looking at it. It's like, I gotta get a piece of that dad. And he was like, okay.
How is
He was 11 at the time. And then later in the day, he's like, I want to be a whitewater paddler. It's like, well, let's try it. Because I mean, like, not the sissy stuff, Dad. I want to like do the real stuff. It's like, we're on. So we spent And then COVID came.
Uh-huh.
I had the kids at the house. Well, we're not going to sit at the house, so we would just go 5 minutes to Saxbahaw to the little lake, which is the Haw River dammed up, and just work on skills. Picked up Evan Spire and his dad Guy from the Coffee with the King event, and then we did the URI. Had a great time with him. So little Evan, he was 8, was wanting to get into it too. So I had the little rippers with me. So the channel took a segue completely last year. I told all my friends, if you want to paddle with me this year, go buy your whitewater stuff because my son wants to do it and I'm not missing this opportunity. So basically I had 2 boys and a bunch of middle-aged men, a couple girls that wanted to be whitewater paddlers, and they're journeying from the first day in the boat up to, by the end of summer, Pete's running 15-foot waterfalls with me and all that.
11 years old.
Well, he was 12.
12.
He turned 12 in the spring.
No, he's 12, man.
But now he's 13. Like last week, he turned 13. So,
Oh, man. So there's your Norman McLean type story.
yeah. So seeing normal people doing or watching the progression, because whitewater is niche.
Mm-hmm.
They're the best kayak in the world, has like 50,000 subscribers, and I got like 12, and I'm just a redneck from Alamance County.
Mm-hmm.
So, but because I got the kayak camping side, and if you go watch a guy clean himself off a 100-foot waterfall and you're not kayaking, you're not even, that doesn't resonate with you. You know,
Yeah.
I'll never do that. You're not going to watch him. But if you see a 50-year-old man getting over to wobbles, and the next week he's a little better, and by the end of the summer, he's running class 3. It's like everyone's like, and they're having fun. Every time they swim, a swimmer bell. Mm-hmm. And it's not to make fun of them, this is part of it. It's not to be ashamed of. It's just, we're all there, we've all been there. It really has been fun, and I drew a lot of the kayak camping crowd into whitewater on accident because they were already watching. And I know personally 65 people that bought whitewater boats last year because of the videos. And so it's been fun, and now that translates into the longboat trips. So now when the guys that paddle with me whitewater, we go out, do a big long trip, I can do a more exciting river because they can handle themselves. But that connection, I guess, there was so little resource for the true newbie whitewater paddler. The video of how to paddle, if you go watch any of the mainstream how to be a kayaker, how to do this, it's no exaggeration, it's an Olympic champion paddler demonstrating a beginner skill.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to learn from that because that guy's so far removed from beginner.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's
He
like
doesn't know
watching-
how to tell you.
Yeah, he doesn't read it.
It's like Jimi Hendrix trying to tell you how to play a guitar.
Yeah. So, but if I say, well, here's, Johnny, whoever it may be, just a guy, and he's doing everything wrong, I freeze it. Here's why you're flipping. Here's what he's doing. Everyone's like, oh, got it. So it's been really good. I think for the community just to have someone explain it on a super base level because I'm just documenting everyone's journey.
I think that our listeners will probably come find you if they haven't already found you. They will come find you because of that.
Do you remember our first event?
Is there a name popping in your head?
Yes, there is.
Starts with W?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
There's the first event that Cody and I had just made, Johnny. And the first event we ever did with the Land Trust in early 2017 was a paddle trip on the Rocky.
On the Rocky, which is, you found
PD Rocky?
Yes.
I've never paddled on.
Dude, so flat water, flat.
Mm-hmm.
Paddling the whole way, it's work.
The higher up you go, there's some fun.
So the section we paddled,
Just puddle water.
yeah, it's not exciting. It's like if you're going to float and fish or something, pretty. But this is my first like group organized, and yours too, I guess. This is our first group organized together kayak trip, which I've always been a fan of, like trying to like not go with groups to do anything.
Right.
So I didn't know what to expect, except for you can always pick out the couple of guys that like that guy's going in.
Oh,
For
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I've got a keen eye for that. The cameras
Yeah.
usually
Well, we
down.
didn't know we did until that day.
Yeah, and then so we went and we put in. When I say I'm not a whitewater paddler, I go out in the kayak, but I'm not doing anything crazy by any means. But I can handle my own. But we were launching everybody off and sending them on their way, and it was maybe 30 seconds in, if, and we already had somebody swimming.
Oh, yeah.
And had to go in and go pull the kayak out and drain it and all that. And
Sam and I took
were-
the swim to go get the
Yeah,
get the
we're-
paddle, get the
Oh,
snacks,
And we're,
Yes, well.
and we're looking at each other like,
It's gonna be a long trip.
Yeah, I didn't even drug my boat down here yet. Dude, this is not gonna be a fun time.
We've definitely had, we did the Catawba last fall, and the rain it was up, it peaked, came down, it was on the upper limit of what I wanted to take on with the crew, which meant it was above the upper limit of what some of the crew wanted to take on. They were like, Pete's saying it's okay, I guess we'll try, But River King Greg got in there, and I was like, whatever you do, don't get sideways on a rock. We put it under the bridge, and I put a timer. I think it was literally on the timer. It was like 31 seconds. He was
Less
swimming.
than that.
I was like, well, sideways on a rock. Well, he's wet now, but just get back in and keep on going. It happens.
but again, that story from 2017 is one that we still talk about.
Yes.
Because it's just, it's the perfect amount of suck for it to be like, nobody got hurt, everything was just perfectly fine and safe. And that's like, and somebody went for a swim. And that's the worst thing to happen, and we can still talk about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of best case scenario a little bit. If everything went just perfect.
Yep. And that's
How much fun is that?
we talk about all the time. You gotta live your story.
Yep, that's
And
great.
Yeah.
That's
Coming into this season, I think we're gonna get back into the kayak camping side of things as well. Because Pete's at a level now. But I missed the kayak. We just didn't do much last year. So getting him with this, side of things is gonna be
Is
good.
he coming on the through panel?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey Shane,
Sure.
what's the in our region, what's the best paddle trip in your opinion? What's like, whether it's an overnight, favorite river,
That's exactly what I was about to ask you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like just name one or two that you're like, if you're in these guys' area, try this stretch or do this paddle.
And you can't compare it to the West Virginia stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
In the land trust, probably my favorite is the Uwharrie.
Yeah.
I like I like both 109 or low water to 109 and then 109 to Dennis Road. I've done some on the Rocky. That's okay, as well, but in y'all's area, I've never been on the lumber, but we did a trip last summer, and this was what really we put in at Buckhorn Dam
2 summers ago.
2 summers ago. We put in at Buckhorn Dam, and we went down to
Irwin.
Irwin. And from talking to people, the Cape Fear, I was like, that's gonna be flat. I'm gonna fall asleep and just paddle the whole way down. But that river kind of really impressed me. So if you're close to here, I'm gonna say Uwharrie. If you're maybe more east, I'm gonna say Cape Fear, because that section Buckhorn down to Irwin, we spent the night on the river there, and that was pretty. There's some rapids there. You can have some fun in it.
And we have a tentative through paddle planned for that exact section in July. So,
Of this year?
Yep, Dr. John Bartlett Campbell invited us all out to camp at Campbell's Pollinator Park. So Cape Fear River Adventures, Moss Paddle, we've all kind of linked up and working on getting a paddle right through there.
So, yeah, let me explain. Sam and I are the novices at this table when it comes to kayaking. Like, we know how to do it, and we've done it, and we have them, but everybody else at the table was talking over our heads at times. So if you're listening, you're like, man, I don't know if I know. You can still sit and talk with these guys.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be nice to kind of add in how I linked up with these guys and invited them into the land trust. So I started watching Shane as a flat water paddler that wanted to know more about our areas and places to paddle in our areas. And I ran into Shane at a Three Rivers event at a whiskey tour. And I literally had a fangirl moment where I was like, oh, I put it all together, like who he was. And I was like, you're not kidding around. Like, it was a complete fangirl moment. And I've picked on him ever since. Like, oh, my husband and I were your #1 fans. Like, we watch all your videos. And that's how we linked. I started watching your videos was through Shane.
Right on.
So how did Shane and Pete, how did y'all get?
Okay, so,
The electrician.
well, I was originally, when I started these Source to Sea trips, I was in baby jail. I don't know if you're familiar with the term. You have a baby in the house, and you're the primary caregiver. You're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything. You can't make any noise. You have to be there. And you'll get the hour or two each day. I used to be around mothers that had young babies, and you walk in, hey, how you doing? Like, shh, baby's asleep. And I'm always like, the baby will live through this. What I learned is that's not about the baby. This is her hour. Don't mess this up. So I understood that. But I would map every river in the East for these long trips. They're every single riverbed on Google Earth's map with every waypoint, everything. Because I couldn't do anything. And the Yadkin was one. That's 400 something miles, 430 miles, I think, from Kerskot to the coast. And so that was on the menu to look at. And I wanted to do that trip. And YouTube, anyone else paid? And so there's two guys on YouTube doing Yadkin River trips. And then I would watch one. No, they weren't any good at kayaking. They weren't any good at YouTube either, but they were on there. So I was watching them.
Okay.
And I was like, well, this guy's doing it, and then this guy's doing it. All of a sudden, now they're doing it together. So it's like, then it was Shane and Kev. It was their first year plot twist. They both got into it at the same time. They both got into YouTube at the same time. And you could tell, like, this guy just started everything. And I would just watch, and I think I may have commented a couple times, like,
Yes,
encouraging things.
Yeah,
No, I was
what are you doing? That's totally
I did troll Shane one time. That's another funny story. I didn't troll him. I didn't troll him.
Yeah.
Remember the throw rope you made?
Yeah.
So he did.
You made?
You know what a throw rope is?
Yeah.
So in safety, you have a rope to throw someone. Using a throw rope is you need to know how to use it. You don't always want to throw it. Sometimes it's better not to throw it. What do you do after you throw it? It's kind of a thing. Well, they cost like $30. If you get a good one, it's like $60. Like a really top of the line. Well, Shane he was budget stuff on his channel. The budget, but
The
every
videos I would be probably watching.
See, I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there ain't nothing wrong with that.
No, there's most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the ultimate thing.
And then sometimes you get a Gatorade bottle and some 550 cord. And was it wax or was it glue? What did you put down the bottom? Epoxy?
Some weight, and I put a little piece of weight and some.
He basically
Maybe some glue.
glued the rope to whatever heavy thing was in the bottom of the Gatorade bottle, and then stuffed all the 550 down in there, and he put the lid on. It's like it's a poor man's throw rope. I was like, you're gonna kill somebody. You're throwing a break at a guy. The only thing out of the water is someone's face usually looking at you. You're gonna land this break. I had to say, bro, don't throw that thing. He wouldn't do it. Tell him about the throw.
It was an ultimate fail.
He wouldn't.
I mean, unless I could have just reached out and grabbed you. So this is not
I
gonna
don't-
the vision.
And then you get bailing twine to hold on to in the river, you know?
The vision was the Batman style grappling hook where it spirals out of the bottle. It
Yeah.
goes exactly
Yeah.
where you want it.
That's what the rope does. The
Yeah.
rope's got a nice handle on the bottom with a loop of rope so you can, if you need
Yeah, I
to.
can see that.
You're an innovator. I like where your head
I like where you're
I told her, that's like, way to go for it. Don't use this thing. But that's only the negative I've ever posted on. I got a kick out of watching.
I got
him.
2 programs.
Yeah, he's ready. I think I linked up with, so Kevin and Shane were teamed up, and Shane was doing a lot of swimming. And Kevin wasn't doing any swimming, but Kevin wasn't doing any helping. So Kevin didn't know any better, but Shane would dump and be like floundering, trying to
He's
get
laughing at him.
Yeah, and they don't have any flotation in the boat, so when they drop their 12-foot boat, what's your saying?
A 12-foot boat. Does anybody know how much water it'll hold?
500 gallons.
12 feet of water.
12 feet of water. That's
That was 12 feet at the bottom.
Yeah. And so he was always training this thing, and Kevin would just be sitting there like, man, all right, he's in the water again. Can't do anything with it. But he would never lend a hand. I was like, man, this was the worst. He just didn't know better, because he was new to it. Like, at least you should maybe help him dump the boat.
Oh.
So after watching this for like that whole summer, beginning of the next summer, I called Shane and said, hey, I got a plan. You want to see Kevin swim? He goes, yeah. I was like, I'm gonna take him somewhere. I think he's gonna swim. And he's like, you think he'll swim? I was like, no, I know he's gonna swim. So I took him to Wilson Creek, low water, super low water run. They call it Elk Run, Explode Flow. And it was his first day ever in a whitewater boat. Just using all my hard gear. He swam 13 times. So I got him back for Shane. But we've both known each other well since then, done a bunch of trips. And so I got onto their channel just from, like you did, who's been on the Yadkin River paddling. I just was doing a little recon.
I like your videos, man. I like somebody who isn't afraid to show themselves dumping, learning along the
Yep.
way.
Fans of self-deprecation.
Well, yeah, and then I raced Wilson Creek this year. So I'm in the same boat. I learned a lesson years and years ago. When you get a new whitewater boat and you're going to get in meaningful water, it's best to be completely outfitted right.
Mm-hmm.
So what would not be preferable is to say have Liquid Logic make you a custom boat that you put your big decals all over and looking real good, but not actually take a minute to outfit it,
Mhm.
and then enter a race last minute,
Mhm.
and then get down there when the crowds are lining the banks of the river, and then go through a hole, get flipped, and then come out of your outfitting, but still be in the boat. But you can't roll it.
Mhm.
And another thing I learned is that when you're racing a kayak, it's like racing on land. You're already out of breath
Mhm.
before you go underwater. So normally in that situation, when I've trained for it, just being bored in my pond, I can get back in the outfitting. I can even put a skirt on underwater and then roll up. But not when you're like out of breath. I mean, I was huffing and puffing just going down the river. When I hit, my eyeballs were coming out of my head. I'm like, I'm not in the boat. And I carped 2 rolls trying to get up, and I swam. I was like, not today, not today. It's been 13 years since I swam.
Wow.
I swam like
Swam
a champ
hard.
on race day. I'm like, yeah. Let's cover that sticker up. I put it all in the video. I swam twice that day. Yeah. So I'm 100% in agreement. If I do it, if you do it, it's on the video.
Mhm.
No one gets preferential treatment. I don't put embarrassing things like that you wouldn't want on the video.
Sure.
But every swim, whether it's me or whoever, that's just part of it. I don't hide it. If I blow a line and goof up, it's on there. Because and a lot of the good kayakers don't do that. Some of the pros, they run in posses that protect each other's image because it's so cutthroat to stay at the top.
Mhm.
They don't want any leader lines ever to be shown to them.
Sure.
But just stay away from all that. I'm a real human. I mess up. This is me swimming on
You're trying to be an Olympian. I guess I can see.
Yeah, well, they're trying to keep that top spot, and it's hard to do. So
I can get that.
I'm not. I'm just no guy.
Everybody tell one good one. We got a couple minutes. Tell one good story. Doesn't matter from which paddling trip. If you got a good one that's just funny or insightful.
You start. I'm gonna try to think of one.
Well, I can tell one while you're thinking if it helps.
Yeah.
A little time to mill one over. So, and I'm no expert paddler at all. Grew up, waiting for the creek to flood and stealing my dad's canoe and that kind of thing. Well, my wife and I took her entire side of the family out from the western North Carolina, where there is some white water, there's some mountains, there's that, and her family's from down east North Carolina, Lumberton area, so flat, black water, not moving water a lot of times. And so we took them up to the mountains on a little getaway trip, the whole family, and got the idea that we should rent some canoes and it's on the New River. I mean, easy. The section we were going to was the New River State Park. Easy flows through those parks, more bitty ripples and things. And so it was me, my wife, my sister-in-law, her 2 kids, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law, and then this other couple that came with us and their kid. And I was in a canoe with my niece and nephew, and my wife and sister-in-law are in a canoe together. My father-in-law, mother-in-law are in a canoe together, and the other couple and their kid are together. Well, my niece and nephew, they went, let's go get ahead on them. And so we're kind of leaving the pack behind and doing our own thing and paddling, trying to hit every little whitewater, rough patch we could hit. With kids, we all have life jackets, we're having a good time. And I said, well, we should wait. We get around the bend in the river, and I said, we should wait. You've probably been right through the stretch. It's in between, I forget the name of the road, but it's upstream of River Camp, USA. And there's one little stretch of, I wouldn't call it anything, it's not even classified, but it's ripples.
Yeah.
And, but if you're in a canoe and you haven't been in a canoe very often and moving water, it could get tricky at times. And I was like, let's wait right here and make sure everybody comes through. So here comes my sister-in-law and wife, they come through. The other couple comes through. Here comes my father-in-law, my mother-in-law. And keep in mind, they're in their 70s. And I see them getting a little wobbly, a little more wobbly. And it's not deep, it's knee deep. And I look at my niece and nephew and I said, pay attention here. Something's about to happen.
Yeah. They
go over, roll the canoe, it'll hold 12 feet of water kind of thing, straight to the bottom. And my mother-in-law is standing there, and Mr. Ronnie, and he's standing there and he looks at my mother-in-law and says, Miss Linda, I told you to keep the boat straight. So I fell over there and helped him get the canoe upright, which is a chore when you're trying to get a sunken canoe out of the middle
Oh,
of
yeah.
the water, but there's a trick to it. But yeah, that was my canoe story from very early on, being married into the family.
Yeah.
My idea to take the family on a canoe trip was probably not what that's called. They still talk about it. So anyway, it's funny.
Yeah, most of the good stories start with a bad decision.
Yeah.
And we were doing the Catawba River above the lake.
Okay.
We're doing it through. It's on the. We did it last fall, November, I think, October, November. But we did a lot of the whitewater stretch, which is low end whitewater, into the lake, James Lake, or Lake James, and then we portaged the dam and then ran that famous stretch coming out of the dam on down. And a guy was joining us from Wisconsin. From Iowa. He joined us on our Wisconsin trip a couple years prior. He was coming down to paddle with us, and he's a big guy, like full grown alpha beachmaster sea lion kind of guy. And yeah, and he's not. I wouldn't call him fat. He's just big, and he's tall, like 6 foot plus. So he needs a big boat. And he was asking, "What boat should I bring?" I said, "What do you have?" I got 2 choices. The first was a sit on top, and I said, "Bring the other one."
Yeah.
Just joking with like sit on tops are notoriously usually not good. There's a couple decent ones now, but he had another boat that would have worked, and I said, "Bring that one." But he wanted to bring the sit on top. He's like,
Pontoon boat?
It's not, yeah, in like 100 pounds. It's one of these heavy things. It's a fishing boat. I said, "Well, there's rapids." I was like, "Have you ever run rapids?" And he goes, yeah. Well, he's run what they call swifts. It's just ripples. It's not rapids that require maneuvering. Well, we get out there and he's having a little trouble. And as it's picking up, but he's invested now. He just drove from Iowa, and he's on the trip. You can see him like he's way up in the air, just like
top heavy.
Oh man, he was having trouble floating. I was like, "Have you ever swam in rapids?" We're having a conversation. Yeah, I swam. I was like, "It's no problem. This, that, the other." Well, he never had. And he got out there and flips in a rapid. It's on. The water's brown, something he had never been used to because it's been raining. And he's like, trying. I was like, "You're good. And I got kind of close to him. I got a little too close. He grabbed my boat, and they had that bear grip on there. I was like, "Man, let go, man." And so I was trying to pop his fingers because I didn't want there to be too much. So finally, I said, grab the back. He was grabbing the front. I wanted to grab something. When he moved his hands, I put the paddle in his chest and pushed off of him just to give him some space. He didn't. You don't understand that when you're a swimmer. You want to hold on to something. Like, you're on your own. But I'll be close by. Well, he grabs a rock. He just needs to swim to shore. He's almost out of it. He grabs a rock, and he's holding onto the rock, and he gets pants. Oh, he's in the river with the pants on. So I put the River King on the video. My battery died right then, so I didn't. Probably better, but I didn't get the recipe. I actually got him out. But we laughed about that all night. He goes, "Well, I guess maybe I've never paddled rapids before." Because these aren't that big. You just got the wrong boat. But he's got another boat now. But yeah, usually you can see it coming. It's usually a bad decision. It's usually only funny later. Yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah, that's a good one. Shane, what you got?
Probably, I could, like Pete, I could probably sit here and talk about this for days. Yeah, you good?
Yes. Better.
Yeah. There's a saying that Pete's mentioned several times that if you like your gear and you want to keep it, if it's on the top of your boat, you better tether it because the river's going to clean it off. And there's a section up on the new river that if you're interested in a camera, there's one still floating around up there somewhere under river. But we got, I was up on the new river several years back with Kevin, and we had paddled, and I flipped coming through a set of rapids. And when I flipped, gear was popping out of the boat, stuff was cleaned off my deck, it was a mess.
But Kevin was waiting in the edge for it.
Yeah, he was waiting at the bottom. Here he comes, he's coming to me.
Here he is, me.
Yeah, come over this way, so I don't have to go there anymore. But he helped me collect up all my gear, and of course, this was late of an evening, and we finally got everything cleaned back up, got the boat empty, put all my gear back in it, got everything ready, pushed off down the river, and we had like 20 minutes till sunset. And if you ever paddle with Kevin, he does not like to be on the river that late of a night. He wants to get off the river. And we knew coming up we had a big island, and as we got close to the island, we could hear what sounded like another rapid on the backside, but it was starting to get dark. We had on the flashlight. So we pull up, and there's a light on. I can see a light. I can see a house. And I go up, and I'm soaking wet. I've got my life jacket on. I knock on this lady's door, and I'm like, honey, I hate to bother you, but can we sleep in your front yard? And she was just a sweet old lady. And she's like, yeah, help herself. There's a little gazebo over there. It's got power if you need to plug anything in. You can have supper. And so we sit out there all night drying clothes and eating supper and charging stuff up. And we never made it to our campsite that night. But there is a camera floating still in that river. Among several other things, I lost a fishing rod on that trip, a pair of sunglasses, a camera.
Whenever you come and look through my stuff, I may have it. I picked up all kinds of stuff. I love finding stuff on the news. That's my favorite place to shop.
Yep. You do snorkel for it?
I have started last year after we went to the Cape Fear with Pete. We brought another guy, Steve, and Steve was trying to play around in some and surf some rapids, and he flipped over and lost a GoPro. And I've now bought, and I'm gonna carry with me from now on, a snorkel set just for that.
Yep.
So,
I put one up last week for a girl who lost hers on the Eno. I went back and snorkeled it up. GoPros are good at getting lost. You gotta have that thing tied up.
All that stuff, fishing rods, nets, tackle boxes.
Yeah, on the New River we were paddling through, the Greenbrier River, we were paddling through Bacon Falls. And it's a little mini gorge, only a few hundred yards long. And it's a substantial rapid. It's like a big section of good whitewater, class 3, solid class 3. It's the only really awesome rapid on the whole river. We bout through there, it sneaks up on you. You're like paddling in the lake, which is often a natural dam. You just gotta always remember that. And then we came around the corner, boom, we're down through there, and we come around the corner. Turns out there is a bait and tackle shop there. I forgot the name of the hole, but it's like the turn in the river with the cliff wall. And then you turn as you come out, when you can first like get a road down to the bank there's a shop there. I was like, the guy's like, now who would put a shop there? I was like, that guy probably makes a mint out of every fishing kayak that flips in that rapid and loses everything they got.
Yeah.
Except the kayak. They'll find a kayak, they'll go straight and then rebuy everything right there and guarantee it. And we talked to one of the fellows who lives up there, so that's exactly why he put it there.
It's a good call.
Yep.
Yep. Restocking everybody.
Everything,
All their
yeah.
stuff.
That's is it my turn?
Got a good one.
Oh gosh, man, we're probably running along. I mean, my best sucky story would be you and me together when I sank my canoe.
Oh man, that didn't even cross my mind.
And I've told that one on the podcast
It's
before.
not necessarily a paddling
It's not a
story,
paddling trip.
but it is a river boat situation.
Yeah.
I've had many more river boat situations than I have
Me too.
paddling situations.
Me too. So I'll hold off. But people have heard that one before. I'll tell it another time. My dad and his buddy went duck hunting a few years back, and they were, paddling through Button Bush or whatever, and got to where they were gonna duck hunt from, and one of those guns was gone. Oof. Super Black Eagle. Oh, gone. And paddle back around, just reminded me from what you had just said. But paddle back down there with a paddle, feeling the
I remember you telling me about
up underneath. Tink, hit metal. Pulled it out, found it, went under in, duck season. Swam, pulled the waders off, got in the river, or in the
That's one of the times I would do it.
got in there, pulled it out, dried it off,
That's awesome.
got some ducks later, kept shooting it.
There
So,
you go.
I'll hold off for my story. I've told it before, but about the same boat. Cody and I got messy.
Yeah, we did. The riverbanks. Okay, so everybody coming on the through paddle, the riverbanks of the Yadkin, this section of the Yadkin, and the South Yadkin, this section, slippery as snot.
Mm-hmm.
The mud is not what you think it is when you can put your foot on it.
Mighty muddy.
You think you're going to step on it and sink up, but you're going to step on it and slip. And there is no paddling shoe that is right for that mud. So you're just going to Just be ready for it.
Be ready for it. Well, thank y'all.
Absolutely.
So much for coming. I enjoyed chatting with you. I'm enjoying all the paddles and everything that the Land Trust is doing, and I'm really excited to spend some time with y'all during our through paddle here in a month or so. Like I said, when we're going to publish this, there's 15 spots still available. I imagine they're not going to last long. So come join all of us. We'll be out and about and look forward to it. This stretch of river is, it's right near where I live. It's a great place. It's really beautiful, and I think an underutilized resource here in the Central Piedmont, North Carolina. So I hope whether you come on this paddle or not, if you like paddling, it's worth checking out and exploring it.
It's suitable for any skill level.
Your YouTube channel, River Kings,
River Kings.
monkeying around,
Monkey in around.
monkey and around. So check them out as well to get amped up for paddling season.
Can I tell one last story about
Please
how
close us out.
Close us
That'd
out.
be great.
I get a lot of questions about the name River Kings, and it's not like alluding to greatness. But basically, I was taking all those friends on our first trip, which was the Fisher River into the Yadkin.
They
They
were
weren't-
on that trip.
Oh yeah, they were not really suited up. They didn't have any paddle gear, and it was raining a little in October. They were cold, wet, and muddy, and we basically, the Yadkin was pumping. We pulled out in the eddy, climbed the bank, and basically arranged it to land in Rockford for that bird there.
Shoals.
Yeah. But there's no shoals to say. It was just
Yeah.
big brown. Well, we get out and the guy's like, "There's a burger joint near here." I was like, "Yeah," but we missed where you're supposed to get out. So we were just coming up 14-foot bank. Everyone was covered in mud, and we walked around the bean field, hopped the railroad tracks, and boom, there we were in Rockford. And there's that gourmet hamburger.
Yeah.
The guys were so hungry; they were like eating. And I was looking at them. I was like, "Guys, you look like straight up gypsies, like river gypsies. We look rough." And Brian Hubbard was like, "Yeah, Pete, but we're eating like kings, river kings." And the guys liked it. That's the name of the group. So it's more of how we feel when we're out on the rivers, on the trips together, just living it up. You go out there, be your own king or queen for that day, that escapism you were talking about, just getting out and enjoying nature, leaving all the rest of it behind. So we're definitely open to any, but we'll paddle with anybody. It's for everybody, and there's a style of paddling and a place for you, no matter who you are.
May 15th and 16th.
May 15th and 16th.
Come be a king
Come be a king.
or a queen.
That's right.
That's awesome. Thank y'all for coming.
Absolutely.
All right, guys.
That was fun.
That was great. Yeah, that was great. Thank y'all so much.